In May of 2007, a 3-year-old girl named Madeleine McCann vanished from her family's vacation apartment in Portugal. Her disappearance sparked one of the biggest manhunts in history. But to this day, no trace of her has ever been found. So what happened to Madeleine McCann? Hi, I'm your host, and this is another episode of our channel. This is the story of the vanishing of Madeleine McCann. It was the early hours of May 3, 2007, when 42-year-old Kate McCann and her husband Jerry left their 3 children, 9-year-old twins Sean and Amelie, and 3-year-old Maddie, alone in their holiday apartment in the Algarve region of Portugal. They were only going to be gone for about an hour, and they arranged for a friend to check in on the kids every 20 minutes or so, just to make sure everything was all right. The McCanns had chosen this particular apartment because it was right next door to the restaurant, where they and 7 of their friends were going to have dinner that night. It was part of a complex of apartments called Ocean Club, and the McCann's apartment was on the first floor with 2 balconies, one which led off from the living room and the other from the master bedroom. Shortly before 8 p.m., Kate prepared dinner for the children, including a small portion of pasta and some chicken. Maddie ate very little and went to bed around 9 p.m. The twins stayed up longer and played video games while watching TV until 9:30 p.m. At this point, Kate tucked them into bed and returned to the living room to join the other adults who were now all eating dinner together. For the next half an hour, the group ate and chatted, discussing how they would have to wake up early the following morning to take their children to a doctor's appointment. Then, at around 10 o'clock, the conversation turned to the issue of leaving the children alone in the apartment. After weighing the pros and cons, it was decided that the oldest twins could be left alone for an hour at a time, but Maddie would need to be with one of the adults. Initially, Kate offered to stay behind with Maddie, but she soon joined the others for dinner. She had never left any of their children alone in the apartment back in England, but since the other parents in the group had apparently done it many times before, Kate felt it would be fine. Kate even spoke to the McCann's friend, Jane Tanner, about the plan. I said, "Can you just do a quick check on Maddie?" And she said, "Yeah, I will," Tanner recalled. At around 10:30 p.m., Kate put Maddie to bed. She joined the others in the dining room, and they continued chatting and eating until shortly before midnight. When the food was finished, the group went out into the warm evening air to drink and socialize. Around midnight, Kate took a phone call from Tanner, who informed her that she had checked in on Maddie half an hour earlier, and everything was fine. After hanging up the phone, Kate asked one of the men in the group if he would go and check on the kids while she finished up her glass of wine. When he opened the front door to the apartment, he found Sean and Amelia playing video games in the living room. Both children looked up at him, smiled, and then went back to their game. He didn't check on Maddie because she slept soundly in the room next door. At 12:45 a.m., Kate joined the others in the living room to chat. They discussed whether they should wake up early the following morning to take Maddie to a doctor's appointment. While Kate went to the bathroom, the others decided that she would go with the children and that the rest of the adults would come along later. When Kate came out of the bathroom, she joined the others in the living room. Some sat down on the sofa, while others continued drinking outside on the balcony. Kate stood by the window gazing out at the sea. At 1:05 a.m., Kate went to the kitchen to get another glass of water. As she walked past Maddie's bedroom, she noticed that the door was closed. Beforehand, she had left the door open. The most likely explanation that came to mind was that Maddie had gotten out of bed to use the toilet and then forgot to open the door again. When she came back to the living room, Kate told the others that Maddie's bedroom door was closed, and she joked that someone might have gone into the apartment and kidnapped Maddie while everyone was distracted. But no one seemed to think it was funny, so the joke died there. Moments later, Kate went to check on her daughter. When she opened the bedroom door, she found the bed empty. The bedside lamp was on, but the curtains were drawn. The window was closed, and the screen was in place. The room was well ventilated, as both the window and the opposite balcony door were slightly ajar. Kate immediately started shouting, "Maddie, where are you?" but got no reply. Kate called for help, and within moments, the other adults were rushing into the apartment. By now, it was 1:15 a.m., and Maddie had been missing for 10 minutes. Kate immediately dialed 112 and reported her daughter missing. The police arrived at the scene, quickly followed by paramedics. By 1:30 a.m., the entire complex was swarming with police officers and firefighters. An ambulance was also called, and Kate and Jerry were soon on their way to the hospital. The couple, who were distraught, did not stop to answer questions from the media. Instead, they insisted on being taken straight to the emergency room. The search for Maddie lasted the whole night. A helicopter was brought in to comb the area from above. It shone its bright light into gardens and across rooftops. Meanwhile, the local scuba diving team searched the sea off the coast in case Maddie had fallen in and needed rescuing. But despite the massive search, there was no sign of the missing girl. Jerry and Kate waited anxiously at the hospital until 7:45 a.m. when they were told that there had been no sightings of Maddie, and that the chances of finding her alive were slim. The medical staff let the couple stay in the hospital as long as they wanted. However, they were eventually forced to return home to speak to the media. At 11 a.m., they stood side by side on their apartment balcony and appealed for Maddie to get in touch. "Maddie, we love you. Please come home. Maddie, wherever you are, please try to get in contact with us," they pleaded. "It's very important that we find her as soon as possible." As the days passed with no sign of Maddie, a theory began to form in the minds of the Portuguese police. They believed that the girl had been kidnapped from the apartment. The McCanns, however, rejected this idea. They believed that Maddie must have wandered out of the apartment on her own and become lost somewhere. On May, the McCanns left the apartment for the last time and moved into a house in the resort town of Albufeira. They still hoped that Maddie would turn up safe and sound, but privately, they feared that she may have been kidnapped. A few days later, the Portuguese authorities announced that they were treating the case as a missing person, inquiry, rather than a kidnapping investigation. Kate and Jerry were furious. Not only did they believe that Maddie had been taken, but they also thought that the police weren't doing enough to find her. "We believe the Portuguese police are failing our daughter," they stated. "We've been kept in the dark, and nobody is taking the lead." The McCanns flew back to Britain and appeared on a TV show to plead for Maddie's return. They urged anyone with information about their daughter's disappearance to come forward. Meanwhile, the Portuguese police were turning their attention toward the McCanns themselves. They had already questioned the couple several times, but now they wanted to formally make them suspects in the case. However, the McCanns refused to cooperate, insisting that they hadn't done anything wrong and didn't want to talk to the police. They hired their own lawyer and announced that they would be launching a civil case against the Portuguese authorities for failing to find Maddie. In September of 2007, the McCanns were officially named arguidos, the Portuguese term for suspects. However, they were not arrested and remained free to leave the country. Despite being named suspects, the McCanns maintained their innocence. They hired a private investigator and began their own campaign to find Maddie. They also wrote a book about their daughter's disappearance and gave numerous interviews to the press. Over the years, several theories about what happened to Maddie have emerged. One theory is that she was kidnapped by an unknown abductor. Another theory is that she was killed and her body was never found. There have also been numerous false leads and sightings, but none of these have ever panned out. In 2014, German prosecutors revealed that they were investigating a 55-year-old man in connection with Maddie's disappearance. However, the man was never charged with any crime, and the investigation was eventually dropped. Today, the McCanns continue to search for their daughter. They have never given up hope that she will be found alive. "As long as there is hope, we will keep searching," Kate said. "We will never give up." What do you think happened to Maddie? Do you think she's still alive? Or do you think she was kidnapped and murdered? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.